Why is attitude so important? Because our attitude colors everything. And the facts are the facts. What's different is our perspective. So the question is the glass half full or half empty? There are at least 17 different ways of looking at it. So the glass is the glass, and how much water is in it. It remains, those conditions, circumstances remain the same, but how we look at it is different. So this idea of beliefs um, are at the bottom, and then our thoughts depend on our beliefs, and then our words and actions are uh, are they take shape based on our thoughts and beliefs. So we can control our thoughts, words, and actions if we can control our attitude. So if we are mindful of how we are being, it is attitude is a way of being. Where I'm coming from. So if I can control that, then I can control the results, the consequences that come from my words and actions. So attitude fits in like between beliefs and thoughts. And I can be mindful of my attitude and change my attitude to suit the situation. So if it's not the best attitude to have in a given situation, then I can change it. Then I can shift into a different gear. I can shift my attitude to a more appropriate one, a more effective one that will help me be more successful or help me get better results. Um, so my attitude will color my thoughts, and it will affect what I'm saying, how I'm being, and also how I'm acting. So attitude can be changed by by doing some preparation. So before going into a situation, into a game, or into a meeting, we can write down what is the attitude that I need to have. What should be my approach in this situation? I should be coming from what place to have the best results. So that's one aspect of learning. Another concept related is what Rumi says is the wound is where the light shines through. So at any given moment, a person can act like a victim. Their approach could be heroic or like a victim. So if bad stuff has happened to a person, those are the facts. But now there is some action that needs to be taken. Otherwise, a person can get stuck in that victimhood, in being a victim. So the truth is the truth that the person was victimized. That is the truth. And there's no excuse for that. But now, that's like an injury. So what to do with that injury? Some action is needed. Some healing is needed to heal that wound. But if that person keeps looking at the wound and continue to be in pain and suffering without taking action, that would be like being stuck in that victimhood. Um, yes, the person who caused the damage or the hurt, that person needs to be held accountable. Yes, but the person who is victimized, what else do they need to do? How do they heal themselves? How else? Um, so one thing to look at is that this can be an opportunity, uh, like it can be a spiritual opportunity. It can be an opportunity uh, to go into deeper reflection, to go into a meditative state, and to reflect upon what happened, and to to explore answers, including using the spiritual perspective to find answers. So the wound is hurting and it's painful, but the wound, as Rumi says, is also where the light shines through. That is where the spiritual light shines through. That is through that wound we can find answers and wisdom, and use that opportunity as a teaching moment, as a training moment, as a schooling moment, to learn some important lesson that we can use in the future, to gather some pearls of wisdom that we can carry with us into the future. Another related concept is journaling, or writing a reflective journal, or self-reflection, or some people call it processing. And a person can say, hey, I do a lot of processing on my own. I don't ask other people for help. I do a lot of processing, um, uh, on my own. Through, some people might say, oh, I do it through the arts. Some people do it by going into nature, going on walks. Other people just through reflection and thinking, and while others through journaling. So even in computers, there is this idea of IPO, input, process, output. Um, so the input is what has happened to us, what took place, the experience that happened, the stimuli. Now, how to interpret that, how to analyze that, how to process that is very important. And especially for an artistic type person or a creative type person, an output or an outlet is needed. Otherwise, the process stage will result in a lot of clutter. So there is a principle that a gift unused becomes a curse. So the artist, for example, is a very sensitive person, and they are receiving a lot of stimuli from the environment, and they're doing a lot of processing. And if they do not channel it, if they don't have a creative outlet, if they don't turn that reflection and exploration of ideas, if they do not turn it into some form of an output, their gift of creativity will become a curse. Meaning, one of the things that will happen is this process stage will create clutter in their mind, in their heart, in their soul, and so on. So, as the poet Iqbal says, that a philosopher, for example, is thinking so much that they are looking, they're following a string of ideas, and they are following that string, and then they get lost in the details. They get lost in the details, and they forgot the starting point or the ending point of that. The string of ideas, or the string, just gets in all kinds of loops, and gets the thoughts get all tangled up inside of us if we don't take an active role in looking for lessons. So, like, these bars represent like something that we learned, something that I can grab onto, something that I got out of the processing, the self-reflection. Um, a very powerful tool is writing a journal. So when we are going through some problem and there's a lot going on in our mind, um, it's very difficult to look at all the thoughts that are going on in the mind, especially when feeling overwhelmed. So one very helpful step is to start writing things down. So all that stuff that's going on in the mind, um, get that off your chest and write it down. And as we write it down, whatever is on our minds, what will happen is things will start making sense. So what we are seeing in our minds, the thoughts are fleeting. It's like clouds passing by. So those thoughts are fleeting, and it's difficult to put a handle on them. But as we start writing stuff down, then what happens is we start to see our thoughts better because it's in the form of words on paper. Writing down is also a spiritual exercise, like Ghalib, the poet, talks about the sound that the pen makes on paper. And on that note, there are some writers or coaches or teachers like Julia Cameron, who wrote the book The Artist's Way, very famous book. Uh, uh, Many teachers like her, they recommend that when you are writing, don't use a computer. Use a pen and paper, because that's physical, and there is something physical happening uh, through that exercise of physically connecting the paper to the pen, to the hand, to the mind, to the heart, and the soul of the person who is writing. At the end, if you are turning that poem into, if you're turning that writing or journal entry into a poem, at the end you can type it up on a computer. But in the process phase, it's best if pen and paper are used instead of typing on a computer. Try it and see if it works better for you. So on that note, you could say that the stages of processing are maybe 6 or 7, starting with we have ideas in our minds, thoughts, visions, dreams, creative ideas, fragments of ideas, and so on. Now, what to do with it? The second step is write a diary. The third step is instead of just a random diary entry, write a reflective journal entry. So it's a little bit more purposeful. The fourth step is take that reflective journal entry and summarize it into some lessons. Okay, this is what happened, something happened, I'm thinking about something that's on my mind. Now, what can I learn from it? Are there any pearls of wisdom that I can come take from it? So that's like step 4 or 5. Summarize the journal, the reflective journal, into some ideas, into some lessons, into some pearls of wisdom. And in that process, write it in the form of a poem. So converting the reflective journal into a poem is the next step. So then the fifth or sixth step after that is now that poem, edit it further, revise it, and then share it with someone, 1 or 2 people, share it with them. That will also result in a lot of healing. And then the last step is publish that poem, or in other words, share it with the world, or share it with the masses, share it with the public, to benefit the world at large. So that's like 6 or 7 steps of a creative process. How you can turn the thoughts and ideas in your mind into the second step is write it down in a diary. Third step is instead of just writing down random thoughts or brainstorming, write down a reflective journal. That's like the third step. Fourth step is look for the lessons, wisdom in those experiences in what you wrote down. Fifth step is turn it into a poem. Summarize ideas, turn it into a poem. Now you're adding creativity to that summary. And the fifth or sixth step, the next step is to share it with 1 or 2 people. And then the last step is to share it with the world to benefit, to share your lessons and wisdom, acquired wisdom, with other people, with the rest of the world. One other related idea is this idea of dirty pain and clean pain. This idea is from a book by a social worker named Resmaa Menakem, Menakem. His famous book is My Grandmother's Hands. The book is about trauma and racism and police brutality and many other things. But it's also about self-healing. And this concept he talks about of clean pain versus dirty pain is, okay, a person had trauma, had a wound, now they are in pain. Now, if they are using positive ways to heal that pain, that's called clean pain. They are peeling the layers of an onion. So all these circles are layers of an onion. So often people talk about, okay, let's get down to the root of the issues. Peel the first layer of an onion, then you get to the second layer. Okay, now let's get deeper, take a deeper look. Peel that layer, now get to the next layer. So peeling the layers of the onion and getting to the bottom of what's really going on, getting to the bottom of the pain, getting to the root of the hurt. Um, and that same journey is a inward journey of self-healing. It's the same journey of, as you go inward, you're going toward the heart, and the heart is the spiritual center. So this journey is also a spiritual journey, and this same journey is also what an artist does. So as the famous scholar Karen Armstrong wrote in her book, A History of God, there are 2 points I remember from that excellent book. The first one is, what is a religious or spiritual person? So that can help us. Her definition can really help us differentiate between an authentic practice versus being a hypocrite. So she phrases it this way: the litmus test of any religious or spiritual practice is, does it make you a more kind and compassionate human being? Meaning, if a person is not acting kind or compassionate, they are not practicing a spiritual, they're not practicing spirituality or a religion. If they are not showing up as kind and compassionate, they are not a religious person. They can claim religiosity, they can appear and hide behind religiosity, but it's hypocrisy, because the litmus test, as Karen Armstrong says, is you're claiming to be this and that, holier than thou. You're preaching this and that, but the litmus test is, are you behaving in a kind and compassionate human being? Are you behaving as a kind and compassionate human being toward others? Is your character, is your conduct toward fellow human beings as a kind and compassionate person? So but that was a side note, although we are talking also about spirituality here. So what is authentic spirituality? But the other point from that book by Karen Armstrong, A History of God, the other point is that she says that the path of the spiritual seeker is the same path as the artist. So that is the same thing that's happening here. This process of getting to the root of the issue, getting to the bottom of the issues, or getting to that kernel of truth, or getting to that nugget, getting to that gold nugget. So a person could be mining and digging and digging and digging, digging into their heart and soul, but not being mindful of, oh, I'm here digging and mining to grab nuggets of truth, kernels of truth, nuggets of gold. While I'm mining, I have to remember that there is a goal, there's a purpose. So making that process purposeful. So same thing in this process of digging deeper. The journey of the spiritual seeker, the path of the spiritual seeker is the same as the path of the artist. So as we are healing ourselves and peeling these layers of the onion, going deeper, getting more clarity, that is a process of clean pain. Now, what is dirty pain is into that process. If I try to cover it up, here's the layers of an onion. I add my own artificial layers on top of the existing layers, which are alcohol and drug use and other self-destructive behavior. So that is to look for healing in all the wrong places, looking to reduce the pain through alcohol or drugs. So that method can numb some of the pain. It can hide some of the pain, but it is shoving the issues under a rug. The next day after the hangover, after the high has faded, and when there's the hangover, the problems are still there, and now the problems are more convoluted, more clouded. My judgment is more clouded because of the drugs and alcohol. So that is a process that the person, if they use the process of dirty pain, that is going to make their problems more complicated. So one day when that person, gets to sobriety, then they will be able to get rid of this first layer that they themselves added. Sometimes a person does that just for survival, just cover up the pain to survive, to get through the day. But in the long run, that's dirty pain. So you have to get rid of the dirt and mess by, it makes things messy. So you have to clean it up, get rid of those artificial layers, so then be able to get to the root of the issues. So today we talked about the process of creativity or healing, and how that is related to the work of the artist and the spiritual seeker. Dirty pain versus clean pain. Getting to the heart of the issues, getting to the bottom of the issues, getting to the root causes, looking for nuggets, gold nuggets, looking for pearls, fishing for pearls of wisdom in these processes, and taking those pearls of wisdom, putting them in our pockets and carrying them with us for the rest of our lives to help us in the future, and to share that wisdom with others, and to pay it forward, and to, for example, share the wisdom of previous generations with future generations. And then we also talked about how attitude is connected to beliefs, thoughts, words, and actions, and these result in consequences. And there's always a price to pay, and consequences cannot be escaped. We can look at that as also as karma, that we can try to ignore that there will be consequences, but the consequences do not go away. So that's all for today. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.